Over the past couple decades, virtually everyone in the world has switched from driving manual cars to automatic. Everyone but Europeans. For some, it might be because they want to feel chic and vintage, while others, it's just superstitious sentiments. There are quite a number of reasons why Europeans prefer manual cars to automatic ones, and although they don't own up to these reasons, in this video, we'll be revealing the truth behind this unpopular choice. So be sure to stick around to the end so you don't miss out. Quick heads up. If you're not European and you're not familiar with the details of the European lifestyle, you might want to put yourself in a simulation in which you actually have an idea of what it's like to be European. That way, you'd understand these truths much easier. With that said, let's get into our list. Fuel efficiency. The first of which is the obvious factor of fuel efficiency. To keep it real with you, PMS in Europe isn't just expensive, it's a luxury. Whether you're rolling through the UK, cruising in Germany, or coasting through the French countryside, you'll quickly realize that filling up your car fuel tank is an active financial commitment. And that's exactly why manual cars continue to dominate the roads in Europe. You see, when you're constantly spending a considerable chunk of your income just to get from one town to the next, you start looking for every little trick in the book to stretch your fuel further than your paycheck. And that's where manual cars come in. With the manual transmission, you get to call the shots. You decide when to shift, how hard to accelerate, and ultimately, how efficiently your car burns fuel. Unlike automatic cars, which tend to hold gears longer or downshift at the slightest incline, manual vehicles give you full control over how the engine behaves. So most European drivers get to consistently keep the RPMs in the sweet spot and avoid unnecessary fuel burn. That's not just driving, it's about optimizing every trip. Automatic transmissions, while smoother and more convenient, tend to prioritize comfort and power delivery over pure fuel savings. Even modern automatics with CVTs or dual-clutch systems can't always match a skilled driver working a manual gearbox. That's why across Europe, where the cost of living and fuel can sometimes feel like a cruel joke, people stick to what gets the best value for money. Fuel economy isn't just a perk over here, it's a way of life. So, if there's one thing that keeps the manual alive and thriving on the continent, it's that irresistible combo of control, precision, and saving those precious euros at the pump. Cost. And then, there's also the very similar determining cost factor to consider. When you buy a car in Europe, you're often paying more for an automatic transmission than a manual one, sometimes a lot more. People tend to be a little more cautious with their coins and a lot more disciplined with spending, which overall plays a huge role in why manual cars continue to dominate the streets. When you walk into a dealership in Europe, you're usually faced with a pretty blunt price difference. The same car with an automatic transmission, it'll often cost you a few thousand more than its manual twin. And in places where the cost of living is a lot higher, like in Switzerland, that price gap isn't something that can be overlooked. For many Europeans, it's a simple matter of logic. Why pay more for something you don't really need when the manual version works just fine, and in many cases better? And not only does it work better, it also has its perks when you factor in long-term costs. Manual cars are not only cheaper to buy, but they're also cheaper to own. There are fewer moving parts, simpler mechanics, and repairs that don't require you to sell your kidney on the black market. Automatic gearboxes, especially older ones or the fancy modern dual-clutch systems, can cost a fortune to fix if something goes wrong. Meanwhile, a manual might just need a new clutch every once in a blue moon, which is relatively more affordable by comparison. If you're the kind of person who likes to plan ahead, save for vacations, or maybe just avoid the headache of going to a repair shop every other week, then the overall lower maintenance cost of a manual is hard to ignore. So while automatics may offer convenience, manuals offer affordability, and in a continent that practically invented being frugal, that's more than enough reason to stick to those gears. Driving control. Moving on, we have another factor that has contributed to European car owners sticking to manual transmission vehicles. Control. Real tactile spine-tingling control. There's just something magical about getting to decide exactly when and how your car shifts gears, and it's not something you'd understand until you're sitting behind the steering wheel of a sleek, stick-gear 90s model from your favorite car manufacturer. It's not just transportation, but more about a symphony of timing, rhythm, and intuition. You've got your left foot dancing on the clutch, your right hand sliding the gear lever into place, and your ears tuned into the subtle notes of the engine. It's a whole experience. Whether you're tearing through the twisty alpine backroads or delicately crawling through some ridiculously narrow, centuries-old cobblestone alley in Florence, a manual gearbox lets you take full command of the car's behavior. Automatics, on the other hand, are great for sipping a latte in traffic while scrolling through your playlist, but they often feel like they've taken the steering wheel emotionally out of your hands. They decide when to shift. They upshift too soon, downshift too late, and generally behave like they've got their own agenda, one that rarely lines up with yours. In Europe, where roads love to throw unexpected challenges your way, From tight hairpin bends, sudden inclines, chaotic roundabouts with 6 exits and 0 signage, you don't want to be second-guessing your car. With a manual, you're in the zone. You're ready, you drop a gear and charge up that hill at your own pace. That sense of engagement and reward is something no automatic can replicate. In a world full of tech doing everything for you, a manual gearbox is the last stand of true driver control, and Europeans aren't giving it up without a fight. And frankly speaking, this doesn't apply to solely Europeans, but to any car and driving enthusiast who actually enjoys being behind the wheel. Driving engagement. Up next, we have something that's less sentimental, but just as important in any European car owner's decision-making process: the driving engagement. Real drivers know that a car's engagement is not just hopping in the car and zoning out until you reach your destination. For many drivers, especially those who grew up in regions where driving is more than just commuting, it's part of the culture. You're not an observer, you're the lead actor, the director, the stunt double, and the soundtrack all at once. From the moment you turn the key, you're in the zone. If you've seen any of the James Bond movies or any British spy-themed action movie, you'd have an idea of what we mean. With a manual transmission vehicle, you get to feel the tension in your left leg as it hovers over the clutch. You wait for the perfect engine note, you engage first gear with a satisfying clunk, and off you go. The joy isn't just in driving fast, it's in doing it right. Finding that perfect gear for the corner, holding the RPM just perfectly, smoothly rev matching on the downshift as the tires grip through a bend. It's tactile, it's rhythmic, and it's incredibly satisfying. It's like playing an instrument. There's a learning curve, sure, but once you've mastered it, it becomes an extension of yourself. Automatic cars, however, don't give you any of that. They're the party poopers of the driving world. All convenience, no soul. Sure, it's smoother. Sure, it's easier. But it's also kind of boring, sterile, and detached. In Europe, where narrow roads twist through ancient towns and scenic landscapes call out for spirited driving, engagement isn't optional, it's essential. And only a manual gearbox delivers that full sensory, connected, heart-thumping experience. This isn't just driving. This is driving, capital D. Full throttle, no filter. Licensing system. Getting to the end of our list, let's check out a contributing factor which is way more boring but not any less true. European licensing system. Yet another factor that's hard to understand unless you've spent time living overseas. There's a major bureaucratic curveball that's been keeping manual cars in need across the European continent, and it's all the licensing system. You see, in many European countries, when you take your driving test, you got 2 choices, manual or automatic. Sounds harmless, right? But here's the thing. If you pass your test in an automatic, your license is basically stamped with a big "you can only drive automatics" asterisk. That means you're legally banned from driving anything with a clutch pedal. Want to try a manual later? Too bad. You'll have to retake the entire driving test again. So what do most people do? They nip that problem in the bud by opting to learn manual cars straight out of the gate. Even if they don't plan on driving one forever, they know that passing the test in a manual gives them the freedom to drive any car, manual or automatic, without restriction. It's like choosing to learn how to swim in the deep end instead of just paddling in the kiddie pool. Sure, it's a bit intimidating at first. The car jerks, the clutch bites, and your instructor might raise an eyebrow or two. But once you've tamed the beast and learned the dance of throttle and clutch, you're practically unstoppable. The confidence boost alone is worth it. European topography. And last on our list of the true reasons Europeans prefer to drive manual cars rather than automatic ones, we have to mention the European topography and roads. Yeah, we're talking geography, elevation, and good old-fashioned medieval infrastructure. Europe is not exactly what you'd call a leveled plain continent. It's filled with everything from steep hills and mountainous hairpins to cobblestone alleyways that look like they were designed by a goat on espresso. And these roads have been paved for centuries, so naturally, you need a car and, more importantly, a transmission that can keep up. Here's the thing. Older automatics, especially the ones before the 2010s, just didn't handle this terrain well. They'd get confused by hills, hesitate on inclines, and shift poorly. You'd be halfway up a slope in the automatic with panic thinking, do I upshift, downshift, or just stall? Meanwhile, the manual driver is cool as a cucumber, dropping to second gear, controlling the torque like a maestro, and easing their way up like a seasoned Alpine rally driver. That level of control is golden when you're facing a street that looks like it leads to the clouds. And don't even get us started on parking. Those narrow, centuries-old villages weren't built with SUVs and wide automatic gearboxes in mind. You're trying to wedge into a space that barely fits a bicycle on an incline so steep it's practically vertical. In a manual, you got the clutch control, the gear response, and the finesse to inch in like a surgical procedure. In an automatic, it's not so easy. So yeah, when your daily drive feels like a stage of the Tour de France, the extra edge of control that manual gives you, It's not just a perk, it's survival. In Europe, where every turn could lead to a castle or a cliff, having full command of your car is downright essential. What other reasons do you think Europeans have for preferring manual cars to automatic? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video drops.